Good morning. Once again, I have my friend Avi Rotman here from Tel Aviv to discuss the latest events in Israel. And there are many. Uh, the political scene is unfolding before us, and it has tremendous ramifications for Israel and the world potentially. So let's ask Avi, what is happening in Israel today?
Hey, Joyce, thank you for having me once more. Yeah, indeed, it's become almost like a common phrase that a lot is going on in Israel, and to catch the attention of the media and the public, it's not an easy thing to do. But today, there is no doubt there is one subject that occupies the Israeli public and the political system above all another, and this is the potential withdrawal of the ultra-Orthodox party from Netanyahu coalition and the government, a move that has potential to bring the government down and potentially also bring an election around the corner. The background for this is the ultra-Orthodox failure of passing a draft law that will exempt once more the ultra-Orthodox from draft into the Israeli military, something that they have tried to do in the 2.5 years that the coalition is alive, but the war created a huge barrier for them because the image is that they are demanding to be exempt from service while Israel is in a constant need of soldier to the prolonged war that our government is insisting of continuing waging against Hamas and the Palestinians.
Since they gave Netanyahu a time frame for after Shavuos to make the decision on the draft law, and he hasn't done it, does he get any more days for a decision?
Yeah, so the dynamic is like this. The ultra-Orthodox parties, first of all, are three, two Ashkenazi and one Sephardic. The position of power in those parties are not in the hand of the parliament member or the chairman of the parties, but in the hand of a few ultra-Orthodox rabbis that leading their communities, and they're the one ordering the parliament member what to do or not to do in this regard. So the decision was received by those selected rabbi. The order was already given to the parliament members that serve in their behalf in the Israeli parliament. They in turn came to Netanyahu with the demand, or you present a solution, or we were instructed to step down from your government. What Netanyahu is doing is trying to buy as much time as he can. He invited the head of the Security Committee in Parliament, which is in charge of legislating the draft law, to a meeting in an attempt to bridge the gap between the need of the military and the demand of the ultra-Orthodox, a gap that is unbridgeable. Now, it's important to mention that because the decision is being held by rabbis and not the politician, the rabbis are not necessarily playing the political game, meaning they can make an irrational political decision much more likely compared to an ordinary standard parliament member or a politician. The reason I'm saying it is because if we'll take the scenario that an election will take place, we should ask, what do the ultra-Orthodox gain by bringing the government down? It's not that there is a feasible solution down the road that a different government will exempt them. But for the rabbi, it's a principle. It's an ideological stand, not a political move necessarily.
It creates the chance for the government to fall. However, I think at this point in time, as long as Netanyahu pursues an unending war with no day after plan, the ultra-Orthodox, Ashkenazi or Sephardi, it appears to me that they don't have a position because there is no way that they can be granted immunity from the draft under these circumstances.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I can add to this, not only that, their reluctance of drafting and the inability to pass a new draft law that exempt them create a situation that they are being stripped from a lot of benefits that were conditioned in their arrangement, meaning that if they go through a yeshiva and not to draft, they're still entitled of a very long series of benefits. Once the draft law has annulled and the ultra orthodox supposed to be drafted, they lost all those benefits. So if they go to a move to bring the government down, not only that they're unable to bring a new draft law into the table, they also have no ability to escape the economical sanction that is being enforced on them. So they are in a lose-lose situation from a political level. That's why there are still people that thinks that it's just a threat.
I actually think that they don't have a way out on this, considering that the path is war with not an end in sight. I don't think that they have an alternative. No matter what they do, they're going to lose.
First of all, a lot of people in Israel think very similar to what you have just expressed, that the ultra-Orthodox, in a sense, hit a dead end in the regards of the draft law. No other government will give them better attitude than the current one. All future government will be more zealot or more hawkish in the matter. And after 25 years, at least, that the Israeli people is being torn apart over the question of the draft law, and if to exempt or draft the ultra-Orthodox, the war in a sense, finally gave a decision. The ultra-Orthodox will have to draft in some sort of way, or on the other, Israel will have to change the general draft law. The situation that some part of the Israeli people are under a mandatory law, while the ultra-Orthodox are continue to being exempt, is probably over.
I think so too. Somebody asked me, when did it happen that the ultra Orthodox were allowed to be exempt? And I thought it might have been with Ben Gurion in 1948.
What Ben Gurion was after, he needed to consolidate all the Jewish groups in the 40s, in the days leading to the War of 48. The ultra Orthodox were not Zionists. Not only that they were not Zionists, there was a very tense relationship between those two dominant Jewish groups, the ultra-Orthodox and the Zionistic movement. But Ben Gurion, being a great leader as he is, put the differences aside. And when the war neared, he reached the ultra-Orthodox in a pledge saying that the war is coming and we will all have to work together in order to win it. And the ultra-Orthodox agreed. And it led to an agreement called the Status Quo Agreement that underlines the relationship between the future or the newly born Jewish state and the Orthodox Judaism. I'm emphasizing Orthodox for those who are coming from Reform or conservative background. That's where it starts, that Orthodoxy has the first lead in Israel.
It has been an escalation over time without any real reason to have done this. They're no longer contributing to the state. They're still not Zionistic. And now it's a separation that is creating a theology that I don't know that Israel can afford in this day and age.
I agree with you, but if we take a step back to what you said, that you can find a reason why to do so, we should ask ourselves not why the ultra-Orthodox are pursuing this way of living, but the question is why the state is allowing them. And if you go back to Begin, and you can definitely see it with Netanyahu until today, in exchange of expanding the exemption, and in exchange of allowing the ultra-Orthodox to stay as an isolated society inside Israel, the ultra-Orthodox gave the ruling party a coalition. That's the root of it. It's already back then. The ultra-Orthodox is basically saying, that's what they're also saying to Netanyahu now. If you want our support and we can bring you the prime ministry, you need to give us A, B, and C, which the draft law is the crown jewel. And Netanyahu is failing them. He's unable to bring it to them. They're in the worst situation in decades, the ultra-Orthodox. Henceforth, they are not happy. And in a sense, Netanyahu is violating the unwritten historical agreement that the ultra Orthodox had with the ruling party. By the way, they play both sides of the political map.
Right, right.
They sat together with Yitzhak Rabin and they sat together with Benjamin Netanyahu. They have no problem of switching sides as long as their terms are being met.
And really, that's the only thing that's important, is that their terms are being met. They have a significant block of power, and they'll utilize it. However, if you don't
Exactly.
continue with their demands, they're out. So I guess, how long do you think it will take before we know that the coalition is not going to stand, and what will happen in this time period? Is there a possibility of new elections?
The opposition has submitted a non-confident vote to be held next week. That will give the ultra-Orthodox party the option to threaten Netanyahu and to actually vote to bring the government down. Until next week, what we'll probably will see is, from one hand, an attempt of Netanyahu to hold the lines and try to convince the ultra-Orthodox or the chairman of the security committee that promotes a draft law that will draft them to find an even ground. He will try to stall and to pull them and to make all kinds of promises. And we'll see also the voices coming out from the different ultra-Orthodox section. Again, there are three parties, and their position and their will threats or together. The major question in them is the Sephardic party, and this is the big question mark, if they will jump on the wagon completely or not. The anticipation is that they will. So we're heading to a week that is very unclear, that there will be a lot of spins and a lot of reports that are coming up in the air. But the first stage will be to have the non-confident vote passed in parliament. In order to approve a non-confident, you need 3 votes in parliament. So it will be the first one.
Who will be responsible for that? And when do you anticipate that vote?
I haven't seen the date, but it probably will be between Monday and Wednesday. And I think the Yair Lapid, the head of the opposition, is the one submitting the request for the non-confident vote. And then the chairman of parliament is committed to carry out the vote, and all parliament members will be invited to vote. If the ultra-Orthodox want to bring the coalition down, they will vote in favor of the non-confident and against Netanyahu government. And if this will happen, we know that it's the beginning of the end for his government. Now, if we're already talking about a potential future election, the ultra-Orthodox might be hoping that Bennett or Eisenkot, in that matter, won't have enough votes to build a government without them.
It's an open ball game at this point.
Yes, and not only that, if that will be the dynamic and Israel is going for an election, it will have a dramatic effect on the war in Gaza, on the negotiation of the hostages, and etc. Everything will be as a result, will be alter or change as a result of the dynamic of the potential election.
It's probably not possible, or is it possible, for negotiations continue when you don't have a formal government to speak to the issues.
If the non-confident pass all three votes and the parliament disperse and we're going for an election in 90 days, in the transition period that the parliament is dispersed and the government lost the support, they become a transit government that is holding on until a new government will step in. It's very similar to the position of after the election in the US, you have 2 months
Right.
that you already have a new president, but the current one is still in office. So this will be the situation. Netanyahu will remain a prime minister. He will keep his cabinet. All the ministers will be in their position, but they are, again, a transit. They are more limited with the thing they can do. They're basically there to hold everything in place. But in regards of the war is considered an urgent need. So the government will continue managing the war. They can continue the negotiation. They can sign an agreement that ends the war, and et cetera, et cetera. So there is still a functioning government, but they are not enjoying the support of the parliament.
And they're not enjoying the support of the people as well
Correct.
because the government is down. Is this the only scenario left open for Netanyahu?
Well, Netanyahu is a shrewd political player, so there might be a scenario when he addressing one of the opposition parties and try to bring them in case the ultra-Orthodox will step down. I don't see it happening because if the ultra-Orthodox is stepping down, Netanyahu is left with the far right. The only way for him to bring a party from the opposition is to offer the end of the war, and it will create again a collision with the other side. He will try to stall. Again, Parliament summer session ends in the end of July, so in 6-7 weeks from now. If he can stall until then, and Parliament will be in recess, the process of a non-confident might be halted for a few months, and it will give him time until October.
That may be his best shot, but I don't see that happening if they're on a collision course now because of the draft. And if you're continuing the war, you need the personnel. You don't have the personnel, you've got the crisis that's been created.
Correct. And I think we focused in our talk on the draft issue and the ultra-Orthodox moves, but other fronts that Netanyahu and the government is facing is also collapsing. So with the international pressure and the lack of consensus on the continue of the war in Gaza, the failure of bringing the hostages back, the rift with the White House, the feeling is that everything is collapsing and it will be like a domino effect. So he's confronting in multiple fronts. This is the most burning one. Maybe in a day or two, we'll have a different events that occupies him more.
Well, I think there are several other events that occupy the political scene as well as the politics of Israel. One is the aid program is not going well. And also there is this dispute over were innocent civilians collateral damage. The IDF says no. Hamas is the one that's saying there's collateral damage, but this could be their propaganda to shore up their own image.
Yeah, well, it's a big subject, but we'll start with the humanitarian aid. There is a lot of friction or challenges with operating the new humanitarian distribution mechanism. But if we'll look at it from a wider angle and argue if the new format can really supply the food to 2 million plus Gazans that are in need uh, for this aid will be successful, then it's a really positive move by Israel because it's disconnecting the humanitarian aid from Hamas and Hamas from the civilian, and in a sense have the ability to shorten the war and to bring to its end. The problem is that it's not working so smooth as and nobody guarantees that all who need get access to the food and many, many other challenges around it. But I think if Israel will be smart and separate the humanitarian aid, will argue that we have the need to disconnect it from Hamas and will work better in order to make sure that it's working properly and will rebuild the trust that we are able and willing to do so. And parallel to that, stop the bombardment against every Hamas terrorist in a building that caused tremendous collateral casualties in civilian life. Israel might be able to continue its struggle against Hamas, but not so much in a military way. The problem is that the Israeli government that is being led and dominated by the far right in the regards of the war in Gaza argues that those two are not to be separated, and they're talking about the new format of the humanitarian aid as not as a way to make sure the population has food, but only as a way to batter Hamas. And it's crucial to continue also the military effect, and those two things together might bring the collapse of Hamas. Let me be a bit skeptical. We're hearing Netanyahu for over a year saying that, a few more weeks and Hamas will be on their knees. The final victory is around the corner. And now they're saying the same with the humanitarian aid format. This will be the final straw that will break Hamas back. The fact that Israel prevent foreign journalists from entering into Gaza Strip from the beginning of the war make it very, very hard for us to really understand what's happening, while Israel is deliberately creating a fog around it, and Hamas is not to be trusted with anything they publish or say, and we are left with question mark, which of course is comfortable for the politicians.
But it's not for the people, because in the foreign press, the foreign press is looking at what's happening, judging what's happening, and they're not pleased with the results.
The only one that is happy with the result is the Israeli far right.
How prepared are all the prospective candidates for prime minister? How prepared are they to form coalitions at this point or in the next 30 days?
They're not ready. The Israeli opposition is fragmented and it's polarized. They are unable to form a unified bloc that will ensure a victory over Netanyahu and his allies if election will take place. But all of our precision are based on the current polls. But once election is being held in Israel, the election process is relatively short. So once parliament is dispersed, there is 90 days until election. 45 days into the process, the parties need to file in their lists, meaning they will know who are the parties that are running, and we also know who are the candidates. So once election is announced, there is 45 days that there is time for the opposition to build different structure, to run together, to new parties joining in. So it will create a very, very big dynamic. Now, the position in the poll will change according to the new formation that will be submitted. And the current events that are leading up to the election days will also determine the tone and the question that the election campaign will revolve around him, while Netanyahu is coming from a position of a prime minister, although of a transit government, but still a prime minister with the ability to control the agenda.
Let's face it, hope springs eternal. So if you can't get what you want with one group, maybe you'll go to the other and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Except in this current environment where the people are split and more are saying they don't want unending war. A lot of things can happen, really. It's an open-ended question. If you have unending war, there's no question. The Haredi are in a rough spot, no matter what.
Most people in Israel, definitely those who follow and involved, can agree that the next election will be the most crucial and important in Israel history, because it's not only will challenge the long term of Netanyahu, it will also have question in the regard of the war, question in regard of the judicial reform, the draft law, and in a sense, it will be an election on the identity Israel will want to adopt in the post, hopefully, Netanyahu era, post-war era. Where are we heading? A constitution, a different system of government, an agreement with the Palestinian. It will be the question will be very, very big, and it will be interesting to see what will be the main issue that the election will be revolve around. But most of us agree that it will be the most crucial one in Israel history.
Yeah, I thank you, Avi. I actually agree as well, because it seems to me that the identity of Jewish peoplehood is on the line. Are we a theocracy? Uh, are we a big tent in Israel? Who are we? And uh, there's a lot to think about.
Indeed.